She didn't scream like a victim. She screamed like something waking from a grave. Elias Ward stopped walking. The mountain wind carried that sound, thin, sharp, breaking at the edges. He turned slow, rifle lowered, breath fogging in the cold dusk. Another scream. Closer now. Elias moved downhill, boots crunching frozen dirt. Then he saw her. A woman tied to an old fence post. Ropes cut into her wrists. Head slumped forward. Hair caked with dirt. Breathing hard like she'd just outrun hell. Elias whispered, "Hey, you alive?" She flinched at his voice, then jerked upright. Don't touch me." Elias raised both hands. "I ain't here to harm you." "You got a knife," she replied, words trembling. He nodded slowly. "Only thing that cuts rope round here." "A beat." Her shaking eased only slightly. "Please," she whispered. Elias stepped forward, drawing the blade. He cut the rope carefully, slow, deliberate, letting the last strand fall by itself. Her knees gave out. Elias caught her before she hit the ground. "What's your name?" She tried speaking but coughed instead. He steadied her. "Easy." "What do folks call you?" "June." "June what?" "Just June." Elias nodded once, as if accepting that answer for now. "You know who tied you here?" June's eyes darted to the tree line. Then to the dirt. Then to nothing. They said winter would finish me." Her voice cracked. "Not from crying. From remembering." Elias looked at the cuts on her wrists. "Rope burns too fresh to be older than ours." "Who is they?" She just shook her head fast, like the memory was a knife. Elias lifted her carefully. "We're headin' to my cabin." "You're frozen through." "No." She grabbed his coat desperately. "They'll come back." "They said they would." "Well," Elias muttered, "then it's their bad luck I found you first." She fainted against his chest. Completely limp. Elias looked once more at the empty ridge. Something moved in the trees, maybe a shadow, maybe a man. He lowered his voice to a growl. "You want her back, you come get her." He carried June into the oncoming cold. June woke with a gasp. Lantern light flickered on wooden walls. Elias sat beside her, sharpening a blade, posture calm as stone. "You're safe," he said softly. "Drink." She gulped water, hands shaking violently. Then. Thud. Snow sliding off the roof? Or steps? June flinched. "They had boots," she whispered. "4 men. Heavy. One dragged me." Elias glanced at her wrists. "What they want?" June swallowed. "They said I saw something I shouldn't." "What something?" "A fire. A face in the fire." Elias frowned. "You making sense right now?" "No," she whispered. "But I'm remembering." Another sound outside. Crunching. Slow. Measured footsteps. Elias stood instantly, hand on rifle. June froze. "That's them." "No," Elias whispered. "Nobody finds my trails." But whoever was outside stopped right at the door. A man's voice. "Ward. You in there?" June's breath hitched. Elias opened the door an inch. Sheriff Hale stood outside, snow on his hat. "Evenin'," Hale said, smiling too wide. "Searchin' for a girl." Elias didn't blink. "Ain't seen anyone but you." June covered her mouth to stay silent. Sheriff Hale leaned closer. "That so?" Bootsteps behind him, silhouettes in the dark. June trembled uncontrollably. Hale studied Elias' face, then stepped back. "Well, stay warm." The men turned and walked off. June let out a broken breath. "They were with them," she whispered. Yeah, Elias said quietly. I know. June sat close to the fire, wrapped in a blanket Elias had thrown over her. I can't remember everything, she whispered. It comes in bits. Like broken glass. Elias poured her coffee. You remember enough to scare the sheriff. He scares me. All of them do. What did you see that night? June whispered. A man burning. The cup trembled in Elias' hand. What man? I don't know his name. But I saw him screaming. And I saw someone holding the torch. Elias stiffened. You sure? June nodded slowly. A knock hit the door, gentle, not forceful. Who's that? June whispered, back pressed to the wall. Elias raised his rifle and opened the door. Ruth stood there, Elias' closest neighbor. Face pale. Eyes sharp. You brought trouble, she whispered. Elias ignored the comment. What do you know? Ruth stepped in, eyeing June. That her? June hugged the blanket tighter. Ruth sighed. You should have left her where you found her. June whispered. I'm right here. Ruth's tone softened slightly. Girl, listen, men like the Warrens don't tie someone up unless they mean to silence them. June stared at the floor. I didn't do anything. Ruth exchanged a long look with Elias. You're gonna get him killed protecting you. June whispered back. I never asked him to. Elias stepped forward. She ain't leavin'. Winter's comin'. Ruth breathed out sharply. Then winter's bringin' hell with it. Night fell fast. Wind slammed against the cabin. Elias sat sharpening a knife again. June sat near the fire, knees hugged to her chest. You're thinking too loud, Elias muttered. You should have left me, June said. They'll kill you. That your thanks for saving you? No, it's the truth. Her voice trembled. They said I saw something. Something evil. Who did you see burn? I don't know. But I remember. I wasn't alone. A hard bang hit the door. June screamed, covering her ears. Voices outside shouted. Ward! Bring out the girl. June shook uncontrollably. They found us, Elias, they found us. Elias shoved her behind the shelves. Stay down. Gunfire shredded the window. Elias fired back, fast, clean shots. One man dropped. The others retreated behind trees. A voice shouted. You're protecting a murderer. June cried out. I didn't kill anyone. Silence. Then footsteps retreating. Elias lowered the rifle. You better start remembering fast, June. She sobbed, burying her face in her hands. I don't know if I want to. Before sunrise, Ruth burst into the cabin, breathless, terrified. They're saying she killed Caleb Warren. June staggered backward. What? No, I saw him burning, but... Ruth pointed at her sharply. They found his body half-burned. And you were seen running from that yard. June shook her head violently. I ran because he told me to run. Elias frowned. Caleb told you? June whispered. He was alive, burning, he said run. Ruth's eyes went wide. Burning that slow? That ain't natural. Elias looked out the frosted window. Warrens'll be back with more men. June suddenly grabbed Elias' sleeve. Why re you helping me? Elias met her eyes. Because you're scared. And scared folks don't lie good. A soft knock hit the door. June froze. Ruth whispered, don't answer. Elias opened it anyway. A little girl stood outside, barefoot, snow up to her ankles. She lifted her face slowly. The Warrens say, she whispered, the woman belongs to the fire. June screamed and collapsed. The girl's eyes flickered like candlelight. Elias stepped forward. "Who sent you?" The girl whispered in a hollow, echoing tone. "He says she knows his name." June shook, whispering. "I don't. I swear." Snowstorm thickened, swallowing sound, swallowing breath. The girl turned and walked away barefoot, leaving no prints in the snow. Snow slapped the windows in wet bursts, each hit louder than the last, like the storm was trying to get inside. Calder tossed another log into the stove, the flame snapping back to life. Marin sat on the small bench, blanket over her shoulders, eyes fixed on the floor like it might split open. She didn't speak until he stepped away from the fire. "You said someone once saved you," she murmured, voice thin. He didn't answer. He picked up the kettle instead. "I'm asking," she said. "It's old history," Calder replied, setting water to heat. "Old history's the only thing that makes sense to me anymore. You don't need mine. You took me from that fence." "I think I do." He sighed, rubbing a hand across his jaw. "Another time." She tugged the blanket tighter. "You're avoiding the question." "Not avoiding," he said. "Just deciding what's worth saying." She leaned forward. "Say something." He took a breath. "Somebody pulled me out of a pit once." "That's enough." "Pit?" she asked. "Not a real one." "You mean drinking," she said. He shot her a look. "Told you." "Not now." "Fine," she said quietly. "Then I'll talk." He hesitated, then nodded once. "I wasn't taken last week," she said. "It's been years." The storm rattled the window. Calder's jaw tightened. "They kept me in a house with no locks on the outside because they didn't need them," she continued. "You learn to stay when staying alive means doing what they say." Calder sat across from her. "You run tonight?" "I didn't run," she said. "I was borrowed. Then I wasn't returned fast enough." "What's that mean?" he asked. She swallowed. "Men like the Warrens don't loan things without expecting something back. I wasn't given back in time. Someone got angry. They tied you to a fence. They wanted someone else to find me. Someone specific." "Who?" "I don't know." He studied her, the firelight flickering across her bruised cheek. "You think they'll come after you tonight?" "I know they will," she whispered. Calder leaned back. "Winter's early. Storm's heavy. They won't track you easy in this." "They don't need tracks," she said. "They need orders. They need fear." Calder stared at the window, the storm howling outside. "You'll stay till thaw." Marin shook her head immediately. "No. They won't wait for that. You're safe here. No one's safe from men like them." He leaned closer. "You are tonight." She gave a bitter laugh. "You don't know how far their reach goes." He didn't respond, but something pulled tight in his chest. He saw the fear in her hands, the tremor she tried to hide. "You said they owed something," he said. "What was it?" Her eyes lifted to his. "I didn't owe them. They said I did." "What did they want?" She hesitated. "Everything." He waited. "When someone owns your time, they own your mind," she whispered. "Takes a while to understand you can't give it back." The kettle began to whistle softly. Calder stood to fetch it, but she spoke again and stopped him. "I thought dying on that fence would be better," she said. He turned slowly. "Don't say that. It's true. Still don't say it." She closed her eyes. "You don't understand. Try me." She opened her eyes. "I'm tired." "I know," he said. "No, you don't." He handed her a tin cup of hot water. She held it like it was the only warm thing in the world. "How long you been running?" he asked. "I wasn't running. I was surviving." "And now?" She looked at him over the rim of the cup. Now I'm in a cabin with a man who doesn't talk about himself, and I don't know if that's safer or worse. Safer, he said. You can't promise that. Didn't say I could. Said I'd try. She stared at the fire. Snow's getting thicker. It'll bury our tracks, he said. It'll bury us too if they come. He didn't argue because she wasn't wrong. She set the cup down. Why'd you take me? Really? Calder leaned his arms on his knees. Because someone once took me when I didn't deserve it. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting tonight. She watched him a long moment, then whispered, Storm's not the only thing coming. Let it, he said. The fire crackled between them, the storm pounding harder against the walls. Marin let her head drop back against the beam, eyelids heavy, her voice barely audible. They won't wait for thaw. Calder stared into the fire, the flames rising as the wind outside screamed like something alive. We'll be ready, he said. But his eyes stayed fixed on the window, as if expecting shadows to form there. The storm raged on, and the night settled around the cabin like a warning. The storm had settled into a quiet white blanket outside when Calder finally stood and pulled on his coat. Marin watched him from the bench, eyes narrowed. He didn't explain where he was going. He simply said, Come on, and held the door open. She hesitated, but something in his expression pushed her to follow. The cold hit them instantly, the snowpack soft under their boots as they stepped into the clearing behind the cabin. He didn't look back as he walked through the trees. She wrapped the blanket around her shoulders and hurried to keep up. The air smelled sharp, like wet cedar and iron. After several minutes, Calder stopped at a small rise where the snow lay unevenly. A rough wooden cross leaned crooked in the ground, half buried by drifting flakes. Marin froze. Who's buried there? Calder didn't answer right away. His breath came in slow clouds. My wife, he said finally. Marin's throat tightened. What happened? He brushed snow from the cross with a gloved hand. Me. She stared at him. You? He didn't turn. My temper. My drinking. My stubbornness. Choose any word you want. They all fit. That's not. Don't soften it, he said. I don't. She stepped closer. You didn't. I didn't lay a hand on her, he said sharply. But I didn't listen. I didn't try. I didn't change. And that killed more than any bullet or blade ever could. Marin watched the back of his coat move with each breath. You carry that alone? Who else should, he said. She wrapped her arms tighter around herself. You think you're the only one with ghosts? No, he said. Just the only one with this one. She studied him. Did the Warrens have anything to do with her? No, he said. That part of my life is on me. Then why run out here? Because I was done hurting people, he said. Done being near anyone I could break. You didn't break me, Marin whispered. You're not healed yet, he replied. She stepped beside him now, her eyes on the crooked cross. Did you love her? More than I knew how to show. People change. Not all, he said. You did. He shook his head. I hid. Hiding isn't the same as giving up. It is when you're running from yourself. She bent down, brushing snow from the rough wood. What was her name? Calder hesitated. Ilara. Marin traced the carved letters with her fingertips. She deserved a marker with more than this. I know, he said softly. Why didn't you make one? I didn't think I had the right. She looked at him. Grief doesn't ask permission. He didn't respond. The wind shifted, pushing snow off the branches above them. Marin watched him in silence, seeing how his shoulders sagged, how his jaw clenched against something deeper than cold. How long have you carried this? She asked. Too long. And you think saving me is some kind of payment? No. Then what is it? Calder exhaled slowly. A chance to do something right for once. She shook her head. You think I'm a chance to fix your past? No, he said quietly. You're a person who didn't deserve offense. That's all. She watched him a long moment. You don't talk much, do you? No, he replied. Maybe you should. He glanced at her. And say what? That you're sorry. To her. To yourself. He stared at the cross. Sorry doesn't change anything. But carrying it alone doesn't either, she said. He swallowed, looking away. She stepped closer, touching his arm lightly. You're not the man you were then, she whispered. You don't know that. I know fear, she said. And guilt. And starting over. I know what that looks like. He lowered his head. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The clearing felt suspended between their breaths. Marin brushed another patch of snow from the cross. You brought me here for a reason. I brought you here so you'd know what you're dealing with. I'm dealing with a man trying to make something right. He closed his eyes. I don't know how. You start by not running. He opened his eyes. And then? You walk back, she said. He hesitated, then nodded once. They turned together and began the slow walk toward the cabin, Marin's words echoing behind them like something fragile but real. You're not the man you were then. Calder didn't believe it yet. But her voice followed them through the trees, soft as snowfall, refusing to let him turn away. Wind rattled the cabin as they stepped back inside, shaking snow from their coats. Calder went straight to the stove, feeding the fire until it glowed again. Marin moved slowly toward the bed, still wrapped in the blanket, shoulders tense. Something in the room felt heavier now, like the grave outside had followed them in. Calder grabbed his tools from the shelf and knelt near the wall. Draft's getting worse, he muttered. Cold's pushing through the boards. Marin watched him work, her voice quiet. You always fix everything yourself? Who else, he said, wedging a pry bar beneath a warped board. The board groaned as he worked it loose. Dust puffed into the air. Beneath it, something shifted, a small envelope sealed with wax. Calder paused. What the hell? Marin leaned forward. What is that? He lifted the envelope slowly. It was thick, edges yellowed, addressed in a shaky hand, W. Warren. Marin's breath hitched. Why is that here? Calder stared at it, numb. My wife kept secrets. Open it, Marin said. His hands shook slightly as he broke the wax. Inside was a folded letter, crisp despite its age. He unfolded it. Marin leaned in close, eyes narrowing as she read over his shoulder. The first lines made her flinch. It was a planned notations about land boundaries, exchange agreements, coercion lists. Names. Targets. And then lower on the page, her own. Marin staggered back. No. No, no. Calder's jaw locked. Ilara was involved? Not involved, Marin said, voice trembling. She was used. Same as me. He shook his head, gripping the paper. She would have told me. Maybe she tried, Marin whispered. Maybe she couldn't. He looked down at the letter again. The Warren seal at the bottom glistened like a fresh wound. They plan to trade me, Marin said, barely getting the words out. Move me like a piece of land. Calder swallowed hard. This talks about expanding holdings. Using leverage. Blackmail. And your wife was caught in the middle. He stood abruptly, pacing. Why hide this? Why bury it under the floor? Maybe she wanted to leave, Marin said. Maybe she was scared. Calder's face twisted. I didn't see it. You weren't supposed to, Marin said. Men like them make sure no one sees. He slammed his fist against the wall, making dust fall from the rafters. They used her. They use everyone, Marin whispered. He turned toward her. This is why they had you tied up. And why they won't stop, she said, voice shaking harder. If you help me, you become part of the cost. Calder held the letter between his fingers like it might burn him. I'm already part of it. Marin backed against the edge of the bed, breathing shallow. I can't do this again, she whispered. I can't. He crossed the room, kneeling down so he could meet her eyes. Listen to me. She shook her head violently. Calder. No, he said firmly. Look at me. She forced herself to meet his gaze. We're ending this, he said. Together. She stared at him, eyes wide, disbelieving. You don't know what that means. I know exactly, he said. You could die. So could you. I don't want anyone else dying for me. I'm not dying for you, he said. I'm standing with you. Marin's breath shook. She pressed a hand to her mouth, eyes filling. Calder held up the letter. This ends with them. She whispered, how? We find them, he said. We face them. That's not a plan. It's a start. Marin looked at the fire, then the door, then back at him. Why would you do this? After everything? He thought of the grave outside. The weight he'd carried. The storm. The scream at the fence. Because hiding didn't save her, he said. Her eyes softened. She closed them, letting out a breath that sounded like surrender and terror mixed together. Then she whispered, okay. Calder folded the letter and tucked it into his coat. We move at first light, he said. Marin nodded, tears drying on her cheeks. The decision hung between them like a spark ready to catch. Calder rose before dawn, the cold biting at his throat as he tightened the straps on the old pack. Marin stood near the doorway, wrapped in the thick coat he had given her, her eyes following every movement he made. The cabin felt smaller this morning, the walls holding the weight of what they were about to do. Outside, winter pressed in with a slow, patient force, marking the land with deeper drifts each night. Marin said, You really think we can reach the ridge before they regroup? Her voice carried a thin tremor, not fear exactly, but something close to it. Calder kept checking the rifle, brushing frost from the barrel. We don't have a choice, he said. We move now, or we wait for them to surround this place. Marin tightened the strap on her pack. Show me again how to work the safety, she said. Calder stepped close, guiding her fingers. Their breath mingled in the cold air as he spoke quietly, slow. Steady. Thumb here. You don't rush it. You stay in control. She nodded, absorbing the lesson like someone who had spent a lifetime without control and didn't intend to lose the little she had now. They stepped outside together. The wind cut across the clearing, blowing powdery snow into small spirals. Calder scanned the treeline, instinct guiding his gaze toward the lower ridge. Smoke rose there, thin and distant, drifting sideways along the sky. Marin drew a sharp breath. That's from them? Calder nodded. Warren men burn brush when they're moving. They want folks scared before they ever arrive. Marin adjusted her gloves. Then let's not give them the ground they expect. Calder looked at her, surprised by the steel in her tone. You sure you're up for this? He asked. Marin pulled her hood tight. I've lived too long in fear. I'm not going back. Calder didn't push further. She was trembling, but it wasn't weakness. It was resolve meeting cold air. They started moving, boots crunching over the crusted snow. The path wound upward, weaving through bare trees and patches of ice. Calder kept a steady pace, glancing back every so often to check on her. Marin's breath came fast, but she didn't fall behind. How far? She asked. Couple hours, Calder said. Less if the weather holds. It won't, she whispered. And she was right. The clouds thickened, lowering like a heavy lid over the ridge. As they climbed higher, the air sharpened. Calder paused near a fallen log. Rest a minute, he said. Marin shook her head. No. They'll be tracking. We're ahead, Calder insisted. For now. She met his eyes. You're thinking about that grave again. Calder stiffened. Not the time. But it's there, she said softly. It follows you. He didn't answer. The past had dug itself into his bones long before winter ever did. At the crest of the ridge, the world opened wide. Below them, the Warren compound sat like a dark bruise against the snow. Smoke curled from several fires, and small figures moved between structures. Marin gripped Calder's sleeve. They're preparing for something. Yeah, he said. They know you're gone. And they know someone helped you. She swallowed. Then we hit them before they tightened the noose. Calder studied her face, seeing determination stronger than fear. We will, he said. But we move smart. Marin breathed out slowly. I'm ready. Calder adjusted the rifle over his shoulder. Then we start planning. She nodded, her gaze locked on the compound. Calder? Yeah. If we don't make it, we're making it, he said sharply. She stepped closer. I need you to hear me. I'm not afraid to fight. But I'm afraid of being taken again. Calder's jaw tightened. Not happening. Not while I'm alive. She held his stare. And if something happens to you? Calder felt the cold dig into him. Then you run. And you don't stop. Marin shook her head slowly. No more running. We finish this. Calder looked out over the ridge, the fires below flickering like warnings. Then we finish it, he said. Tonight, he said. Before they see us coming. The smoke from the Warren compound drifted in slow, heavy threads as Calder and Marin moved down the ridge. The light from the burning brush piles flickered across the snow, turning everything orange and strange. Calder kept his rifle tight to his chest, eyes locked on the distant figures moving around the fires. Marin followed close, her breath shaky but steadying with each step. The cold bit at their faces, but adrenaline pressed deeper than the frost. We stay low, Calder murmured. They got watchers. Marin whispered, I don't see any posts. They blend in, he said. Same as wolves. They slipped behind a line of cedars. The compound stretched out below fences, sheds, a long porch with nailed-up lanterns, and a cluster of men throwing brush into roaring flames. The fires weren't for warmth. They were for warning. Calder knew the tactic well. Burn bright, intimidate, remind the valley who owned the land. Marin whispered, they're expecting someone. Expecting you, Calder said. She tightened her jaw. Let them. They edged toward a narrow break in the outer fence. The wire sagged like it had been cut before, someone had used this entry point more than once. Calder crouched, lifted the wires, and nodded for her to slide through. Marin whispered, why would they leave a gap? Easy access, Calder said. For moving things they don't want seen. Once inside, the smell of burning pine thickened. The ground was dark with trampled snow, footprints layered over footprints. A couple of men in heavy coats paced near the fires, talking quietly. Calder gestured for Marin to stay behind him as they slipped between shadows. A voice barked from the porch. Keep those fires up. Boss wants light on every inch. Another man shouted back, ain't nobody sneaking past with this blaze going dut. Calder and Marin crouched behind a stack of wooden crates. The heat from the fires reached them in waves. Marin pressed a hand against her chest, trying to slow her breathing. Calder whispered, you ready? No, she whispered back. But I'm done running. They moved again, weaving between the crates and a low equipment shed. The porch lights cast long, shark shapes across the yard. Calder paused near the back door of the main house. The door was cracked open, warm air drifting out with the smell of tobacco and grease. Marin grabbed his sleeve. Inside? That's where answers will be, Calder said. She nodded. Then let's do it. Calder eased the door open an inch at a time. The hinges groaned softly. Inside, the hallway was dim, lit by a single lantern mounted crookedly on the wall. Voices echoed from a room at the far end. Boss said she ain't property till the papers are signed. She will be. Family keeps what's owed. Marin's jaw clenched so hard the tendons in her neck stood out. Calder whispered, "Stay behind me." They moved slowly, each step deliberate on the wooden floorboards. The voices grew clearer. "Girl's tougher than she looks. Fence didn't break her. We'll break her at the handoff. No one fights after that." Marin whispered, "Monsters." Calder whispered, "Focus. We get proof." He nudged open the door. Inside, 2 deputies sat at a table littered with bottles and papers. A map was pinned to the wall with markings around Calder's ridge. One deputy looked up, eyes widening. "What the?" Calder stepped in fast, rifle raised. "Don't reach." The second deputy froze with his hand halfway to his belt. Marin moves beside Calder, voice sharp. "Where's the patriarch?" One deputy swallowed hard. "Why re you here?" Calder said, "Answer her." "He's in the storehouse," the deputy stammered. "Checking the inventory." Marin's hands curled into fists. "Inventory. That's what you called me." The deputy's eyes flicked toward a set of papers on the table. Calder swept them into his coat. The other deputy snapped, "You can't take that." "Watch me," Calder said. A shout rose from outside. "Someone's at the back fence." Calder backed toward the hallway. "Move now," he whispered. Marin grabbed a lantern from the wall as they fled through the door, slipping out the side exit into freezing air. They ran across the yard, past the roaring fires. Men scrambled, shouting orders. One of them spotted Marin. "There! Stop her!" Calder fired a warning shot into the snow. The men dove behind crates. Marin yelled, "This ends tonight." A tall figure stepped out from the shadows near the storehouse, the Warren patriarch, coat long, face pale in the firelight. "Turn back, girl," he drawled. "Before you make this worse." Marin stepped forward, shaking but firm. "I'm done turning back." "You're making a mistake," he said. "No," she whispered. "Fixing one." Calder raised his rifle. The patriarch's eyes darkened. "You got no idea what you're stepping into." Marin lifted the lantern, firelight blazing in her eyes. "I know enough." Behind them, the compound erupted in shouts. The confrontation had begun. They didn't stop running until the lights of the Warren compound disappeared behind the rise. Calder stumbled once, catching himself on a frozen branch, his breath tearing from his lungs. Marin grabbed his arm and pulled him upright. Snow soaked through their boots as they pushed into the deeper woods, weaving between dark trees that leaned in like watching silhouettes. Calder winced, pressing a hand to his ribs. "Keep going," he muttered. Marin shook her head. "You're bleeding." "I ain't stopping out here," he said. "They'll spread out soon." Branches snapped in the distance, men yelling, dogs barking. The sound pushed them forward, through a thick cluster of pines, until a worn hunting trail opened beneath their feet. Marin pointed ahead. "There," she whispered. Through the trees, a small shack leaned crookedly in a pocket of darkness, half swallowed by vines and old snowdrifts. Calder hesitated. "It's unstable." "So are we," Marin said. "Inside." They slipped in through the warped door. Cold air clung to the walls like damp cloth. The shack held nothing but a broken chair, a pile of old blankets, and the faint smell of rust and mold. Marin shut the door and dropped the lantern on the floor, shielding the flame with her hand. The soft glow lit Calder's face, pale, drawn tight with pain. She stepped closer. "Let me see." "I'm fine." "You're not. Just need a minute." He reached for the wall but swayed. Marin grabbed his coat, guiding him down onto the blankets. When she pulled his jacket open, dark blood had already soaked his shirt. A bullet had grazed his side deep enough to tear skin, shallow enough to miss anything vital, but still dangerous in the cold. Marin whispered, "Why didn't you say anything?" Calder's voice cracked. "We needed distance. You needed help." She pulled a small sewing kit from her pack, one Calder had insisted she carry. Her fingers shook as she threaded the needle. Calder watched her, eyes heavy but steady. "Marin," he murmured. "You don't have to." "Yes, I do. You should have left me back there." "So should you," she said quietly. "But here we are." He managed a faint, painful breath. "Guess we're both fools." "Fine by me," she whispered. "Hold still." She cleaned the wound with melted snow, biting her lip as he hissed through his teeth. Each stitch drew a soft wince from him, but he stayed still. The shack creaked with wind, branches brushing the roof like fingernails. Calder muttered, "They'll come this way." "I know. You should run before they do." "Stop saying that. It's true." "So is this," she said, tying off the stitch. "I'm not leaving you. Not now." He looked at her, the lantern glow catching the tired lines in his face. "Why?" "Because nobody ever stayed for me," she said. "Not once. I'm changing that." The woods outside fell quiet, too quiet. A single twig snapped, sharp as a gunshot. Calder tensed, reaching for his rifle. Marin put a hand on his shoulder. "Don't move too fast." Calder lifted the rifle anyway, jaw tight. "If they're here, they'll circle first." Marin knelt beside him. "You shouldn't fight in this condition. And you shouldn't face them alone." She touched his hand, firm. "I'm not helpless anymore." Another snap outside. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, testing the perimeter. Calder whispered, "They're tracking." Marin blew out a shaky breath. "How many?" "2, maybe 3. Soft snow brushed the doorframe as someone passed outside. A murmur drifted through the wall, low, arrogant voices. "You sure they came this way?" "Tracks lead right here. Boss wants them alive." Marin's eyes widened. Calder raised the rifle halfway, pain slicing through his side. She grabbed his wrist. "You'll reopen the stitches." "Doesn't matter." "It matters to me," she whispered fiercely. The footsteps stopped just outside the shack. Silence pressed in, thick as ice. Calder leaned close, voice barely a breath. "If they come in, run." Marin shook her head slowly. "You know I won't." "I'm telling you to. And I'm telling you no." The door handle rattled once, metal scraping wood. Marin's pulse hammered. Calder steadied the rifle, teeth clenched. Another twig snapped, closer this time, right beneath the window. Calder whispered, "Get ready." Outside, a low voice muttered, "Check the inside." The shack held its breath as the danger closed in. The shack door shuddered under a heavy shove, dust sifting down from the rafters. Calder braced his shoulder against the wall, lifting the rifle despite the pain tearing across his stitched side. Marin held her breath, hands shaking but ready. A second shove hit, harder, followed by a muffled curse outside. "Kick it again," a voice growled. "Boss wants them alive," another warned. "He won't know if they're bruised." Snow slid off the roof as the door splintered. Calder hissed, Marin back. She didn't move. "I said I'm not running." "Just stay behind me," he muttered. "Last thing I can ask." The door crashed inward. 2 Warren men surged inside, boots stamping snow across the floor. The lantern light cut over their faces, cold, confident, sure of their power. One lifted his gun. "Drop it, old man," he sneered. Calder raised the rifle. "You first." "You're bleeding out," the man said. "Don't make this harder." Marin stepped beside Calder, her voice sharp and steady. "You're not taking me." The second man laughed. "We already took you. Fence didn't hold, but we will." Calder fired first. The shot roared through the shack, blowing splinters off the doorway as the first man dove aside. The second lunged for Marin. She slammed the lantern into his face. Fire burst, hot oil spraying across his coat. He screamed, falling backward into the doorframe. Calder grabbed her hand. Out now! They ran through the broken doorway into the night. The forest churned with shouts, lights bobbing like angry stars. Snow clutched at their boots as they crashed down the slope toward a clearing they both knew too well, the old logging ground where hunters sometimes camped. It was open, dangerous, but it gave them sightlines. Branches whipped Marin's arms. Calder stumbled, breath ragged, one hand pressed to his ribs. She caught him before he fell. You can't outrun them like this, she said. Don't need to, he said. Just need space to fight. Behind them, men spilled from the trees, flashlights slicing through darkness. There! Cut them off! Marin dragged Calder into the center of the clearing. Moonlight hit the snow in a pale sheet. The cold air vibrated with the sound of running boots. Calder dropped to one knee and steadied the rifle. Marin, he whispered. Find cover. No, she said. He opened his mouth to argue, then shut it. Something in her eyes, fierce, cracked open, alive, stilled him. 3 Warren men burst into the clearing. Gun barrels gleamed. Calder fired twice. One man spun and fell. Another ducked behind a log. The third kept advancing, shotgun raised. Marin stepped forward before he could aim. Hey, she shouted. He swung toward her. She pulled the revolver Calder had given her on the ridge and fired. The shot cracked like a breaking bone. The man dropped, stunned, clutching his shoulder. Calder's breath hitched. Good girl. She didn't look back. Not a girl anymore. Voices rose from the trees as more men approached. Then a deeper voice cut through everything, a voice full of command and arrogance. Stand down. The Warren patriarch stepped into the clearing, coat brushing the snow, face calm and carved like winter stone. Behind him, his deputies fanned out, guns raised. The glow from their lanterns made the snow look bruised purple. Marin, he said, almost tender. You stir up a lot of ruckus for something that isn't yours. She stiffened. I don't belong to you. You belonged the moment you signed the labor debt, he replied. You can't run from paper. Calder spat blood into the snow. She doesn't owe you a damn thing. The patriarch looked at Calder with mild amusement. You again. You've caused trouble before, haven't you? Marin stepped between them. You tied me to your fence. You ran, he said simply. That's punishment. Calder lifted the rifle. One more word. Easy, mountain man, the patriarch said. You're barely standing. Put the gun down, walk away, and you might see morning. Marin reached into her coat and pulled out the folded letter, the one from Calder's floorboard, the one that exposed everything. She held it high. You wrote this, she said. This proves what you are. What you planned. A ripple passed through the Warren men, uncertainty, fear, cracks in their loyalty. The patriarch's eyes hardened. That letter means nothing. It means you were going to trade me, Marin said. Use me to buy land. Same thing you did to other girls. Calder whispered, stand strong, Marin. The patriarch stepped forward, fury breaking through his practiced calm. Give me that letter. No, she said. He lunged. Marin didn't think. Her hand lifted, steady, sure. The revolver cracked. The patriarch staggered, clutching his chest, blood spreading across his coat. He fell into the snow, gasping once before going still. Silence. Real, heavy, absolute silence. The deputies stared, stunned. One dropped his gun. Another backed away, muttering, "Boss is gone, he's gone." Calder sagged forward, the rifle slipping from his hands. Marin rushed to him, catching his weight. "Stay with me," she whispered. "Please." I'm here, he breathed, voice threadbare. Just tired. The remaining Warren men broke, scattering into the woods, leaving lanterns flickering on the snow. Marin dragged Calder toward the ridge, every step shivering with exhaustion and cold. We're almost home, she whispered. You saved yourself, he murmured. We saved each other. Dawn began to break over the trees, soft gold bleeding into the bruised sky, lighting the path back toward the cabin. They didn't stop. Not until home called them forward. Her head slumped against his shoulder, breath thin as thread. Kai's arms tightened around her, boots sinking deep into the new snow as he carried her through the last stretch of trees toward the cabin. The wind howled like something alive, pushing at his back, urging him to move faster. Stay with me, he murmured. I'm trying, she whispered, barely audible. He pushed through the final thicket. The cabin appeared like a shadow rising from the whiteout, its chimney unlit, its window glowing faintly from the lantern he'd left burning. Almost home, he said. It's not home, she breathed. It will be tonight. He kicked the door open with his heel and took her straight to the cot by the wall. The moment he let her down, she folded sideways, hands trembling, lips blue. Kai knelt. Say something. Anything. She stared at the floorboards. It hurts. Where? Everywhere. He stood immediately, grabbing the kettle, the blankets, the jar of herbs Mary Warren once taught him to use before the family turned cruel. He threw more logs into the stove, the fire roaring up fast, sparks leaping. She flinched. Fire scares me now. I know, he said softly. But without it, you'll die. He wrapped a quilt around her shoulders. Her breath shuddered as heat finally brushed her skin. For a minute, neither spoke. The wind battered the cabin walls like fists. Then her voice crept out. Kai, they won't stop. I know. They saw us leave. They'll track us through the snow. They'll try. She swallowed, throat stiff. I don't want you dying for me. I don't want you dying either. Silence again, thick as frost. She slowly lifted her eyes. Why did you help me? Kai sat beside her, elbows on his knees. Because I know what it's like to be tied to something you never asked for. I know what it's like to be hunted. She blinked. Who hunted you? He didn't answer, not fully. But she saw something move behind his eyes, a memory that lived like a ghost in his blood. Before she could speak again, a snow-thick knock thundered on the door. Both froze. No rhythm. No pause. Just a pound heavy enough to shake the frame. Her hand shot to Kai's sleeve. They found us. He rose like a man stepping toward the gallows, slow and steady. He grabbed the shotgun from the wall, cocked it once, breath fogging the cold air leaking from the seams. Get behind the stove, he whispered. I can fight too. Not right now. She moved, dragging herself with the blanket over her shoulders like a wounded animal trying to hide. Another pound. Kai, she whispered, please, don't open it. He didn't. Instead he spoke through the door, voice low and steady. Say your name. Silence. Then a rasp from the other side. Open up, mountain man. Her breath snapped. That's Warren's brother. That's Jonah. Kai clenched his jaw. Go away, he growled. Can't, Jonah called. Got orders. Governor wants her back. Says the girl's his property. Her voice trembled from behind the stove. I'm not his anything. Jonah continued, breath wheezing like he'd been walking through deep snow for hours. You know how this works, Kai. You hand her over, maybe you get to keep that pretty ridge of yours. You don't. He let the silence finish the threat. Kai lowered the shotgun barrel until it rested against the doorframe. I'm not bargaining. Jonah chuckled once, low and sick. You're choosing wrong. Again. Thought losing your wife taught you something. For the first time, Kai stopped breathing. Behind the stove, she covered her mouth, eyes wide. Jonah's boots shifted closer. Open the door, Kai. Let's finish this. Kai's voice came out cold as the snowstorm outside. You say her name again, I'm burying you in a drift so deep they won't find you till spring. Silence. Then a heavy exhale. Last chance. Kai stepped back 2 paces, lifted the gun, aimed dead center at the door. But before he fired, Jonah spoke one last time. You think you're saving her? You're not. She knows who she belongs to. Ask her what she did last winter. Ask her why the governor tied her to that fence. Ask her who died because of her. Her breath hitched so hard she almost cried out. Jonah added, voice sticky with mock sympathy. She didn't tell you she escaped from a trial, did she? She didn't tell you what she confessed. Kai didn't turn toward her. He kept his aim steady. Go, he said. Jonah didn't argue this time. Heavy steps retreated into the snow, crunch fading, storm swallowing the sound. Only when it was completely silent did she speak. Kai. I didn't confess. I survived. He slowly lowered the gun. I know. Tears streaked her face even though she wasn't sobbing. You believe me? Yes. But you didn't even hear the story. I don't need to. She wiped her face with the back of her hand. Why? Why trust someone the whole region hates? Kai finally looked at her. And in his eyes, she saw nothing but a man who'd been damaged in the same shape she had. Because people hated my wife too, he said quietly. And they lied about her until she died believing she was the monster they painted. He swallowed. I won't watch that happen again. A crack in her chest loosened. Pain, but also warmth. She whispered. What did they say she did? They said she poisoned the Warren cattle. He shook his head. But I was there. I saw the real cause. A sickness in the soil. A rot. She tried to warn them. They punished her instead. She stared at him a long moment. I'm sorry. It's the past, he murmured, though it didn't sound like it. He knelt beside her again, hands steady now. You're safe. Tonight, you're safe. She reached for his wrist without thinking, her fingers cold, but her touch honest. You don't have to protect me alone. He held her hand, just for a second. Winter's long. We'll get through it together. The wind outside howled again, but inside the stove crackled with warm orange light. The shadows on the cabin walls softened. Her breathing steadied. Kai placed another blanket over her legs, making sure no cold could reach her. She watched him as he moved, the quiet man who found her tied to a fence and refused to let her die. Thank you, she whispered. Kai didn't respond with words. He stoked the fire, reloaded the shotgun, checked every latch on every window. Then he sat beside her, back against the wall, guarding her through the storm. And for the first time all winter, she let herself sleep. The cabin breathed with them, a shelter built from fear, fire, and the strange beginning of hope.